It's 4 o'clock on a Monday, and you know what that means. Yes, sirree, Bob or Betty. It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. This week, starring very special guest star, Miss Brooke Ferri. And thank you, fake audience. Thank you, fake band. They never miss a note. I love those guys. Hi, Brooke.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Yeah, well, you say that now. Let's see what you say at the end of the show. Brooke has been here. I'm going to do an actual short intro in a second, but she's been at Taxi for about 5 years, and I just figured out this is the first time I've had you on the show.
It's the first time?
And
Finally.
I mean, we've been
Finally
doing this.
worked my way up.
Right. I don't know if I'd call this up, but okay, whatever you want to call it is fine with me. So anyway, I'm really excited to have her because she's one of my go-to people. If I've got a question that I feel like I need more input on, it's not unusual for me to grab Brooke out of the screening room and say, hey, come here, Matt. So she's been a valued member of the A&R staff here for over 5 years now, right?
Yeah.
She's an attorney who clearly liked the music industry more than practicing law, and that's why she chose the music industry. Around the time we first met you, you'd been working at a library for a couple of years, I think?
Yep.
And then we were very fortunate to get her to join the A&R staff here, and she's now the proprietress of her very own catalog as well. She's got amazingly good ears, and you're a bit rare in that, I think you're rare, in that you can handle a bunch of different genres with aplomb. I know I've thrown out the big words today, and not screwing them up either. Take note. But she's really good at, some people come to work at Taxi and say, oh yeah, I can do this, I can do that. When Brooke says that, or if Brooke says that, you can believe it.
Thank you. Well,
She knows what she's talking about. And my favorite thing, I made a note, my favorite thing about you, as long as we're talking about my favorite things about you, is that she totally understands the different types of uses, which a lot of people never really articulate, the fact that there's kind of a how and a why and a when and a where that makes music work differently in different contexts. So
you got the proprietress right. That part.
I've been practicing that one. Anyway, so I really like having her here. She's a great person and a great set of ears, and we're glad to have her. So welcome.
Thank you. Well, thank you. I love being here. I've enjoyed working here from the beginning. I remember seeing when the concept that this existed. I was like, what? That's a job? I get to go do that?
Right.
You know, and I tell people that, they're like, no way. You listen to music all day and tell people your opinion about it, but you're not a critic? Like, that's awesome. So, that's pretty cool.
Thank God you're not a critic, because then your opinion probably wouldn't matter. You're an actual, in the industry person. I always think it's funny. I go on and look, this sun will go away soon. We've got sunlight leaking through the cracks of the blinds at a very inopportune time. I should say hello to our folks in the chat room. We've got Steven Spinner, Gloria Covington, Fen Tamilonis, John Bedoff, Lamar, Jesse, Anna, Mojo, Peggy, Charles Wilson, Marion, Sherry Marcus Milano.
Oh, I'm not recognizing some names here, Jeff.
Yeah, Linda Cullum, Adriana. Hey, by the way, Adriana, on my way to work today, I saw either a moving van or a cleaning, something with a big logo on the side that said Adriana's, I don't know, meat and poultry or cleaning service or something, and I thought of you. So just so you know.
Sure, that's what she wants to be associated with.
That's right. Adriana's meat. Dave Knopf, Robbie Hancock, Daniel Murphy. Anyway, hello guys, welcome to the show. Glad you're here. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to have Brooke probably screen 3 or 4 different songs and maybe an instrumental or 2. So a combination thereof. And we're going to ask her a lot of questions, only 2 of which came from you guys. A bunch of them came from me, so why you guys didn't go on the Facebook page and donate more of your questions, we do not know, but do it. And I want to tell you up front, well, first of all, if I don't hold these up, Bria's going to kick me under the table. So subscribe. I mean, if you're watching this thing in the archives, on YouTube, it's no skin off your butt to hit that little red button, right? You can unsubscribe later, but just subscribe for now so YouTube likes us. Now, actually, it's good because you get alerts and don't miss any of this great stuff. Share it. It's really important. Share with your friends. Didn't your parents teach you anything? And finally, like us, because we're from Los Angeles and we need all that liking that we can get. All right, moving on. So I've got some questions, but I should probably look at my notes. Hold up signs, I did that. Look, I came prepared. Lovely signs, I did. Oh, I want to mention something I haven't even told Bria that I'm doing next week. We've talked about it a little bit, but she doesn't know that I pulled the trigger on it. I am going to have you guys that live in Los Angeles go on our Facebook page and say why you think you would be a good person to come on the show next week here in the office and interview moi. Ooh. And then 2 of you are going to get picked if you have really, look, you could give really crummy answers and nobody gets picked, and then I'll have to come up with something really good for the show. But I want you guys to come and interview me. Ask me anything you want, the most embarrassing stuff, the most dig deep on taxi stuff. And then after the show, I will take you out to dinner, and then you can ask me a bunch of stuff that I won't answer publicly. No, I will answer everything honestly and in a very forthright manner. So there you go. Right after today's show, go to our Facebook page and say, I want to interview Michael, and say why.
So you can only do that if you've subscribed and liked and
Exactly. Wow, you should be on the show more often. You did that really well. And look, she did it without notes. That was ad-libbed. Okay, so I'm going to lead off with a question and get to a song pretty quickly. But I'm asking all these on behalf of the screeners. Not the screeners, the members. Do screeners find reasons, or do they try to find reasons to forward stuff or to not forward stuff?
I think if there's a reason to not forward it, we don't have to find it.
Ooh, that's a really good answer. It just kind of makes itself obvious, right?
Yeah, it does. I think, maybe if the newer screeners will kind of work through it, but I think when you've been doing it for a while, the reason not to, it comes up very quickly.
How quickly?
As soon as you hear it.
Okay.
I'll start, I'll put on a song and there's a recording hiss. That's it. If it's film and TV, that you're gone before I even hear a note, unfortunately. Of course, now I'm still going to listen to the song, and I'm not going to just say there's hiss, bye, because that's not going to be the only things that I want to talk about. There's other things also what's good about it. That's just as equally as important. But if you were, I start screening kind of immediately. As soon as I start listening, I'm like, oh, I love the intro, or the intro is too long. And then as each element comes in, I'm sort of feeling how it fits. And as long as nothing goes, then it's a forward. As long as it's in style, obviously. Now there's something that it's that was gorgeous, and that was a hard rock track, and they're looking for teen pop. It's not going to work.
That's one of my other questions, because people get frustrated. But it's the greatest song in the world, but it didn't get forwarded. Yeah. Why not? Or it's already in a library, or it's already been in a show, and you guys didn't forward it. Why not? And tell them why it matters that we have to match this stuff to the request.
Because then we don't need to be here, I feel like.
That's a good reason.
No, I feel like obviously the filtering of quality of recording, quality of production, quality of songwriting, all of that, that is super important. But beyond that is filtering out what people just don't need. I get stuff that I'm like, this is great, I have so many of them, or I'm not getting people aren't requesting this right now, or it's just going to sit there, or it's a Christmas song, and and it's December 26th.
I spoke to a very good mutual friend of ours, somebody that you used to work for before, and if you know, don't put it in the chat room, please. But he and I were on the phone today for about 45 minutes, and he said he just got his first request for Christmas 2018.
He did not?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to have to eat my words.
I know, we're not even, no, we are a month past Christmas, but yeah, early, huh?
Really early. I tell people not until July or August, but wow.
I could understand if it's Coca-Cola and they're planning, the big Christmas push or something. I can understand why they would want it early, because it may be something that they're shooting to or something, but yeah, that's odd.
It could be a film.
Right. Yeah.
With a Christmas scene, it's
Yeah.
possible. That's early.
I thought so.
Rules are made to be broken, so.
You know, and that's a really valid point around here, because everybody wants to know what's that magical thing that'll make the screeners like my song or like my instrumental. And do you guys follow all these rules? Is it fair to say that the screeners are fluid, that they consider, before when I mentioned the where, the when, the why, that you might treat something you're screening for a library differently than you would treat it if you're screening it for a request that comes in from a supervisor? Because and tell them why, how those, what some of those things are that make you react differently or look at it through a different lens.
Okay, so having worked at a library and then having my own catalog, I know kind of the parentheses that somebody might put around something, if you know what I mean. If you think of, like, they give 3 references and they all fit in a pretty tight box. For a library, more likely than not, it can get a little wider around that, as far as, like, this one is the most poppy, this one is the most indie. You can kind of expand the circle around it a little bit more, because they're going to be pitching. They might not necessarily be asking a request from us for a very specific thing. It's more like a project. Like if somebody comes and says, hey, we've got this new season and we need all of this smooth R&B, female vocals. Got to sit behind dialogue. Okay. And they're going to get 3 references, but there's a lot within that brief, within those concepts. So I feel like you can get a little wider with it. If you're working with a supervisor, they know exactly what the scene looks like. They know how fast it is, how slow it is, how much tension it has, and it's got to fit directly. So yeah, I think there's a lot less wiggle room.
Have you ever seen a scenario in your entire career where somebody said, that song isn't what I'm looking for, but is so freaking amazing, we're going to put it in and re-edit the scene and change the storyline because we just got to have that song in our movie?
Yeah. Well, I suppose if, like, Paul McCartney came and said, I'm going to give this song to you for your movie for free, they would probably recut the scene to fit it. But,
okay, not Paul McCartney.
But beyond that,
a regular person.
No.
Let's talk about how it's different. I'm so jumping ahead of my questions, but
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It's all great stuff. So let's talk about the difference between looking for a pop song for a commercial, a pop song for a scene in a film. Let's say it's a coming of age scene or a coming of age movie with a party scene. So you've got TV commercial that needs a pop song. You've got a movie with coming of age with a party scene. You've got a library that's looking for a pop song. I'm trying to think of another, or maybe a trailer that needs a pop song.
Ooh.
Is it the same pop song or the same requirement for those different applications? Do you look at it differently? Do they search differently?
I think if it fits in the trailer, in the commercial, and in the film, it's going to fit in the library, obviously, because they want all of that. And trailers super specific. That's going to be very different. I'd say 9 times out of 10 it's got to have they call a trailer structure. You know what I'm talking about. This is where you're going with this, right?
Well, it's part
Make sure
of
I'm giving you what you're looking for. So so the trailer structure, I'm sure a lot of you guys know what that is. You watch a trailer, it's pretty much there. You've got the first act, which is mellow, kind of sets the scene. It allows for the character development, the people to talk, or like the booming voiceover. And then the second act is when the action gets going, and then then there's this pause, the big hit, ba 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 ba, and then the action takes place, and then everyone wants to go see the movie.
They hope.
They hope. So that's the third act structure. With a pop song, it can be kind of trailerized, which they say, which basically means you take your last chorus and you add some extra vocals and some strings and some big drums on it, and you can make it have that. Now, if you happen to have something that just has a really big chorus, that can work for trailer.
While we're on the subject of trailers, let's talk about the fact that people have been loving reimagined former hits, past hits.
The covers.
Yeah,
yeah.
and doing, and everybody talks about, ew, that's so gross, I don't want to use it anymore, we're all tired of it, but it's kind of like, ukulele hand clappy, happy clappy snappy, as Matt Hurt aptly named it, I believe.
Doesn't go away.
It doesn't. It's, my wife and I go to movies pretty frequently, and the trailers are still that yeah. More often than not, I find that up-tempo songs get made into slower songs, and that they become less boom, boom, boom in your face and get made to be very dreamy and ethereal. And then an issue pops up, and I've noticed this sitting in movie theaters, that you've got to have such a great lyric line that it can be stretched and take 30 seconds to spit it out, and it's meaningful, versus a lyric line that's a little more all over the place. And if you slowed it down to that tempo, you'd never get it spit out in time to fit in the trailer.
Yeah,
so there are all these things you got to think about. That
the covers for trailers are crazy. Things that you would never listen to. Right. You know what? Like if you put it on, you just be like, what's happening?
Right. Drink some friggin' coffee.
Yeah. But then it works. When it's paired to picture, it works so well, and it's so much about the familiarity factor. Yeah. It's the familiarity, but the surprise, and that's what so much of what music is about. That idea of like, it sounds like something that you're used to hearing, and yet you're like, oh, I've never heard this before. So I think with the covers, it's a way to get you excited about the movie, because it's like it has some sort of emotional response to you. It's either a song that you listened to when you were growing up, or it's a song your parents listened to, or something like that. So you immediately relate to it. So you feel like, well, I've got to see this movie because that song was, I don't know, the song where I had my first kiss, or whatever. It's
like an old pair of jeans, but you put rhinestones on it. I get it. What was that thing at Christmas time they used to sell? The little gun.
The Bedazzler.
Yes.
No, we're no longer going to call it trailerizing. It's going to be called bedazzling.
This is what I love about Taxi TV, is we invent stuff right here before your very eyes. And we get really good lighting. I don't know what the hell's going. It's the change of seasons. Apparently spring is coming faster than, what's his name, Puxatawny Phil?
It was Groundhog Day. That's right.
It was, and he said 6 more weeks of winter. Not here, because it was 80 degrees outside today. Yeah. Let's listen to a piece of music. And while you're listening, I'm going to go grab the ladder and move my little sun blocker up there, because it's starting to become a pain in my ass. Okay, let's listen to Summer in the City, and I'm not going to tell you what the genre is because it's not on the list.
On my list.
Not on the list. It was a late edition that Bria played for me when I went down to her office before, and I'm not going to tell you what the genre is because I want to see if you nail the same genre that they thought it was.
The lyrics are in the stack.
The lyrics are in the stack. Okay, I'm going to get a ladder and do a little handyman work while you're busy listening.
Okay, Bria's playing it?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Bria.
Hopefully my volume is up already.
I don't think it is.
Bummer. Well, that's 2 handyman things that I've got to do.
I sweat the good stuff, 'cause you got enough to get me by. You've got the good drugs, enough for me, when you come to get high. All we want is to get buzzed. Keep it up until the sunrise, chasing that sweet love.
that, I could just feel where the ending was coming. Okay, so I'm watching these guys in the chat room, and they were all guessing at the what they would call rock and roll happy song for the genre, vintage party, happy, chair dancing. Okay.
I don't know what that is, but
It's the first cousin to lap dancing, but we don't do that on this show.
not that kind of show.
No, definitely not. It's a family show.
Indie dance rock, pop with blues influence, indie pop, 90s rock,
Power pop,
Power
indie
pop.
surf rock. So now you
Yeah.
can see how tough it is to be a taxi screener.
Yeah.
And what would you call that?
I think there's a lot of early Zeros references and pop rock.
Okay.
More rock on that side. I feel like it reminds me of, I'm forgetting the name of the band. I can remember the name of the album, which is Palm Trees and Power Lines, but I can't remember the name of the band. But that was right around like 01, and then Sherwood is another reference. It definitely has, an upbeat party vibe, but I feel like the fills, the vocal production, and the feel of the hook give me more of like an early 2000s vibe rather than going a little more contemporary, whereas I feel like the guitar riff could.
I remember Bria played me a little bit of it down in your office.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't understand what the lyric was, because the vocal seemed a little slurry to me.
Mm-hmm.
How much does that affect a library, or when you're acting as a screener?
Yeah.
When you're screening, if you love something but the lyric is a little muddled or a little down in the mix,
Yeah.
will you hold something back because it needs clarity?
Yeah, I mean, you can. I mean, I certainly can consider, but it's gonna have to do with the genre that they're looking for.
Mhm.
I think this does hit a specific sound. I think that vocal production and the kind of the muddleness, it's got, I imagine, on stage with, baseball caps backwards and,
Right.
just, and as you can tell, I was a guitar player.
Surfer, though.
Yeah,
She is a surfer.
Yes. And I feel like if those are the references, then I think that's going to fit in.
Because it's got that indie.
Yeah, it's
slot
got that
to
indie,
it.
kind of dirty, but a little, just a little bit of slightly older. I feel like now if the reference was the Revivalists or Cage the Elephant or Portugal the Man, that would be sort of like, I would feel like that's them, and now is those references. I don't think it would work for that. I think that vocal production doesn't have the same clarity.
So I had a really good question and I lost it, but I have a thing that I call triangulating the references. It's the hardest part of what we do here at Taxi is finding 3 references that we think are going to lead you guys down the correct path and give the screener the right reference points to judge the music fairly. And people often ask, do the screeners know more about the listing or the request? They don't. They know what you know. They're looking right at the listing. There are times when the references should be adhered to because they're all 3 almost identical. Obviously not identical, but really, really close.
Really close.
And there are other times where it's like, the listing will say within a range of, and we'll even put that in italics to make sure that people don't miss it. How would you suggest that they better read the tea leaves of the 3 references? It won't be the same for every listing. What do you do as a screener to get that perspective?
Well, I mean, you pointed out exactly, there's always that sort of qualifying language in this, would be on a playlist with. That's going to be more, closer to them in a range of, or, and when they're more diverse, then you've got, more wiggle room. I think one thing that really helps is really knowing, because like you asked, do we know more about the listing? We don't know more about the listing, but I feel like what helps me screening is what I do know is I know those 3 references. Very rarely have I not already heard those songs.
Yeah, you're pretty
many
encyclopedic.
times.
You are. You're talented that way.
Yeah, but I also know all the songs that I would consider to be on a playlist with them. So I already have, so when I'm thinking, you know, if a Demi Lovato reference comes up, I'm already thinking, okay, who are the other, you know, 6 artists who aren't referenced but would be on that same playlist? And if somebody's getting, you know, further and further down there, it's like, well, okay, that still works because she would still be on a, you know, can you get Demi Lovato and Halsey on the same playlist, you know? And so I think knowing as much about the genre you're writing in as possible is super, super important. And if you're writing contemporary music, don't listen to old music while you're writing contemporary music. Only listen to contemporary music because it gets in your head and the rhythms get in and the feelings get in and it makes a difference.
Don't we all of us under the roof at Taxi, all of us in the industry wish that we could magically do a whatever swish and a whatever they call in Harry
Swish and
Potter.
flick.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
I have a son. That's how I know
was gonna
that.
say only a parent would know that. Swish and flick. What is it? Something Leviosa?
Adagium Leviosa.
Yes.
Okay.
Would you?
So what do I swish and flick?
No, if I could do it, that would be my one wish for all musicians, is that they get past what the music was that they fell in love with at 20-something.
Yeah.
And stay
Hard.
current. And that is hard. I understand that it's hard, but
Yeah. It's
just
a
because
big
you have
thing.
great 80s rock doesn't mean that you're great for today. There will be occasions,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. It's the heart. It's super, super true.
and I don't really know how. I'm not enough of a musician myself to say you've got to change your drum figures. Like, don't do ticka on the tom-toms because that's a dead giveaway.
Yeah.
But I can't tell them what the tom-tom fill is to make it sound like it's today.
Yeah. Well,
That wasn't a question.
But
That
no,
was
but the nice thing about that though is that we have screeners who can.
right. That's true.
I know one screener absolutely is going to tell you exactly what to do on your drums to
Right.
fix that. So, but I think, you know, in this day and age, you're like, what's the guitar, you know, what guitar pedals are they using on blah 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 song, and you're gonna, and there you go. You know, I mean, you want, obviously, like, you know, don't just directly copy what everybody's doing, but here's the thing, if you have certain influences that are really coming through in your music, they're still going to come through. Like, your style is still going to come through no matter how much you tried it, no matter how much you change your tom fills or you get a new fuzz on your guitar or whatever like that. Your style is still going to come through. So I don't think you have to worry too much. I don't think too many people have to worry too much about, you know, sounding too much like somebody else.
It's more the dated thing. And when I look out from the stage at the road rally and I look at our audience, it's definitely become more diverse age-wise. It used to be that probably 85% of our audience was over 40. And it's gotten younger over the years, but young people still get stuck. Somebody who fell in love with music in 92, they're going to sound like 92 when it's 2030.
Yes.
And it's really hard to get away from.
There's somebody who's not here. Somebody submitted to me, and I was like, okay, well, I expected it to be an older guy, and it wasn't. He was young, and I was like, what? Why did he sound like this?
Maybe his parents forced him to listen to their music. I don't know.
Yeah.
So one of the people, Lars Anderson, asks, when making a pop cue, should that only be the backing track for a singer to add to the top? Pop instrumental cue.
Okay.
Should that only be the backing track for a singer to add the top line, or should that be included with, for example, a synth? So, in other words, if they're making a pop cue, should they include the vocal melody and use a synth or a guitar or something to carry the melody, or should they just leave the melody out?
I think you almost always are going to put some sort of melody on top of it. I think it's going to be rare, very rare, that they're going to just want that backing. I mean, you know, the listing might say, you know, this is going to go under something with a lot of dialogue, so keep it simple. But I mean, if you think about it, without any melody on it, it's going to sound really repetitive. And sometimes under dialogue, that can be just as distracting if it's too repetitive, especially if you've got like thinking about a pop track and the heavy bass and the heavy drums. I mean, that's just going to stand out so much without something on it to just kind of like mellow it out and mute it down a little bit. But when we're talking about cues, we're talking about more likely than not non-scripted television, so it can't be too frenetic or all over the place because it's going to get in the way of dialogue.
It's so...
So I totally didn't answer your question.
Well, no, I'm loving that we're having this conversation because it shows them how much thought we have to put into it here, which is we will actually look at a listing when we're writing it and when it goes through editing and proofing before it goes out the door. And those are the kinds of things that I look for. Sometimes the folks on my staff will say, avoid being, bombastic or frenetic or something.
Yeah.
And I go, you know what? For this, it actually could be.
Yeah.
So I'll take it out. But as a general rule of thumb, you don't want it to be frenetic and have the risk of stepping on dialogue.
Yeah.
I've come up with my own little phrase to answer Lars's question, which is, I would recommend doing melody light. If you try to do every note that the vocal should do with an instrument, it's going to sound like
weird.
Montevani doing 101 strings or something like that.
Just want a little motif.
Right, yeah. So just pick whatever would be the melody note on the one. Go ding, 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 something.
A little focus.
Yeah, because otherwise it's going to sound like a rhythm track.
Yeah. Exactly.
Everybody sitting in the control room going, bring in the vocal, dude. It ain't happening.
Yeah. And also, for the lot of libraries, a lot of them might ask for beds or stems or say, hey, this is great. Can you also get me a mix without this thing on it, without the melody on it as well? So there's going to be plenty of options for you. If you the more options you have already ready, the better. It's much easier to take stuff off than to put it back on.
I was extremely tickled pink today to find out that some of our members, who was the lady that sent the thing in about the Super Bowl?
Britt Fox.
A member named Britt Fox sent an email today saying myself, meaning her, and I think some other taxi members actually built a spreadsheet of 150 different examples of music that happened during the Super Bowl broadcast.
Okay.
Which I thought was brilliant that they were thinking about that stuff and annotating it, because that's how you learn.
Yeah.
If there was one broadcast throughout the year, though, that I think might not be the best example, that would be the one, because and they mostly did the commercials that appeared, and the commercials are very Super Bowl centric. They're either come together, we're all one people, let's unite, or thematically kind of different on Super Bowl day than they would be throughout the rest of the year, although not 100%, but some of the time.
And also, you're getting huge, massive hits.
Yeah.
You're getting things, you've got
that they wouldn't spend the money on.
Alicia Keys,
Right.
for an entire commercial. It's like the entire song. It's a gorgeous commercial.
Right.
But, you're not going to see that, every day. That's for the Olympics,
Yeah, exactly, because that's, what do they spend for 30 seconds on the Olympics?
I don't remember.
It's millions.
$1 billion.
Yeah, it's like...
More millions and millions, yeah. I don't know. Somebody Google it.
They will.
I know.
It'll be, Paulie will be Googling that and giving us an answer very shortly. Okay, been getting this question for 26 years. Want to make sure we answered today's show. If you, meaning Taxi, this is how they asked me, if you guys, meaning Taxi or the A&R team, get material that's pretty good or almost on target, why don't you forward it to the person on the industry side and let them decide if it's good enough or not?
I think the idea is that we are industry people, so that we know.
Rumor has it.
Yes, this is subjective. It really is.
But it's not your taste, right?
I don't have taste anymore.
Right.
I really
she
don't.
has really excellent taste, but your taste, you're trying to channel what you think their taste is for that scenario,
Absolutely.
right? Okay.
It's really about, is it good, not if I like it. It doesn't matter. Honestly, if it's good, I like it. I really do. Because I know that's going to mean money for somebody, and who doesn't like that? But no, I like it because it's good, and then I get to afford it, and they're happy, and Michael's happy, and you guys are happy, and it's great. I think I don't think they want okay. I think they want really good. And there is really good. And I don't think it helps the members for us to say, I'm forwarding this. It's pretty good. And I think it helps you more if we say this is pretty good, and if you did the X, Y, and Z, it would be great. Because if I forward it and it's pretty good, and there's ones that are better, they're not going to call you. And if they see your name again, they might be like, oh, I remember this guy, he wasn't good enough. So it doesn't do anybody any good.
I think part of my worry as the owner of the company is that if it's a library in particular that we're running a listing for, and it's something like orchestral, everybody's got a ton of orchestral, and it may be that they've reached out to us and said, I'd like to freshen up the orchestral aspect of my library because my stuff is starting to sound a little long in the tooth. The stuff that we hear might be incredibly good, but if it also sounds like orchestral from 10 years ago, then we're not going to afford it instinctively because we know that they're trying to freshen it up.
Yeah.
Because there isn't a library in the world, I should say, a library that does instrumental stuff that doesn't have orchestral. But there's orchestral and there's orchestral. So we intuitively know that we're looking for something that sounds fresh, which we would put in the listing. And it may be a hybrid, so that it's got some synth or guitar in there, something that makes it sound modern. It's funny now, even taiko drums have become passé already, you know. Which leads me to a question. What would you prognosticate are the hot genres for 2018? Because everybody wants to know that.
Everybody wants to know. I think more and more of kind of a hybridization.
Of what and what?
Of what? Well, okay, so hold on. So I actually brought a list. No, he didn't. I didn't know he was going to ask me this question, but I did write down kind of who I think is interesting right now. And I do think it's people who are taking two styles and putting them together. I mean, we saw that with the Revivalists. We saw that with, Imagine Dragons. We've seen that. It keeps happening. And I know that one thing that I do find happening, and I find you guys working on that and doing that, which is cool. I find that one thing that happens is there's too many ideas. A lot of times I feel like people trying to take it to the next step at 5 genres, whereas like 2 is good. So people that are like really interesting to me right now is Maggie Rogers. I mean, I don't know that she's necessarily putting anything unusual together, but it's kind of electro indie pop. I like it because it's catchy, it has a good beat, it's memorable, but it still has an edge, and it still feels. I don't want to say it feels fresh. That's so.
I mean, there is no. So we all worry that we're overusing words like compelling and fresh around here, but there is no better word for it than fresh.
And she looks like Drew Barrymore, so that's cool. Pale Waves is cool. I like it because they have kind of like a 90s alt rock, but with like a tween pop vocal, and like that so shouldn't work, and it does. It's interesting. It gives something. There is a little retro flavor in there, but that vocal is just unmistakably 2018, and it's cool. It's taking, like what the Revivalists did, taking an older sound and just kind of making. I feel like the vocal and the vocal production, the melody is really what's important to bring something that has retro influence into something that sounds contemporary. What else? Brooke Bentham is like Adele meets PJ Harvey. That's cool.
How do you spell the last name?
Bentham. Bands I've already mentioned, so I do like Halsey a lot, even though I'd say she's, more mainstream. She's awesome. Sheer Mag is kind of like, I don't know, Alabama Shakes meets Slayer.
Wow.
I don't know. They're gritty. They're definitely gritty. I don't know if that would be a film and TV necessarily use, but I think people are trying to get more interesting. People also are really liking Japanese Breakfast. I don't necessarily listen to them, but people like them.
I find that on the commercial side from ad agencies that they go through a cycle almost predictably, that the first brief, and will often send out briefs and they say it's on a rolling basis, which means they don't really know what the hell they want. And I understand that, because you don't really know. The editor's working on the film cut and they think that, this could work. And I once did the math. There's 16 people involved in typical ad agency thing. So in the beginning, somebody, maybe the creative person that had the idea for the spot, thinks, it'd be cool with this kind of band. Probably influenced by what she or he grew up with, and they like that kind of music. Then Maybe the producer of the spot has some input. Then maybe the director of the spot has some input. And then ultimately it lands in the editor's edit bay, and the editor is probably going to cough up some ideas. And then it goes back to kind of a committee at the ad agency, and people go, I like it. I don't really love that song. Or they've picked one that they'll never be able to afford. We both know way too much about that. So it goes through this whole thing, and ultimately they almost always end up with something that's very middle of the road that will work in the flyover states, because they chicken out when it gets down to it. They're trying to be really cutting edge, because ad agencies are just rife with cool cutting edge people that know a lot about what's hip, and they do, legitimately they do, but in the end they get cold feet, or somebody gets cold feet and says, let's go with the tried and true, and they end up licensing something that sounds 5 years old. It's not terrible, it's just
it's not necessarily memorable,
and it's torture for those of us in the industry when we watch the process happen. It's kind of like watching a train crossing a track with a car, trying to get over the track.
Slowly.
Yeah, it's just, it's going to be bad. Let's see. Common mistakes that you hear from members with their submissions. What would those be?
I was actually thinking about this. I figured you might ask me a question like this. I was thinking the things that come up the most for me is like immediate things, is what we've already talked about. It doesn't sound contemporary. Two, I'm often finding problems with drums. They're too heavy, they're too stiff, they get in the way of things. They don't sound balanced in the mix. It's so important for film and TV, because that is, if there's going to be dialogue in the scene, they're going to bring it way down. And if you bring the volume way down, and all you hear is drums, it's
going to sound like tick, 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 in the background.
So that's a good thing to do with your songs. When you're mixing them, turn them way down and play something from YouTube over it and see if you can still really feel the mood of the song. You have to, the mood and the spirit of the song still has to come through. And the drums is often get in the way. I'm always turning the volume down and going, nope. So that's a big one for me.
Other stuff as far as something that irks me, but I would never, if I were screening, hold something back because of it. But a lot of times you hit play and you have to wait 4 seconds before the music starts. You go, why couldn't you just make it start when you hit play? I understand that when people were using cassettes, they might miss, getting it close to the leader, but there's no excuse anymore. Other stuff like that, the bad titles or anything that...
I've seen some bad titles. I would never hold it back. My suggestion is not to name it, Taxi Song Number 4.
Wednesday night mix.
And also Tension Cue 7, because if a library takes it, they're going to have to go back and forth with you to title it. They can't put it in their catalog like that because they already have one, or they need something that just gives it more of a feeling of what kind of tension, walking in the woods. I mean, simple. It can be simple, but as long as there's some sort of description to it, I think it just looks like you put a little more time into it.
Tension is now that you're bringing up tension, something I've wanted to talk about on Taxi TV a bunch of times, I don't know that I ever have, is everybody seems to love cranking out tension cues. They're all different kinds of tension.
Yeah.
There's the tension you'd encounter on The Bachelor, who's going to get the rose, or there's the kind of tension on some sort of physical competitive show or Survivor. That's a different kind of tension. Yeah. The tension you would encounter when somebody's in a meth lab and maybe going to blow themselves up. There are all these different kinds of tension. Why has the industry, I wonder, not come up with better ways to describe those various kinds of tension?
I don't know. We've got dramedy. We should have rose tension, meth tension. Why have they? You know what? I think the reason is I think there's a lot of crossover. Yeah. I think you can take some of those cues and it's going to fly under some of the other scenarios where it might not necessarily. I think also, I think it's evolving. It evolves quickly. What you're hearing, I have not gone back and rewatched any, or if I ever, watch Bachelor episodes, but I'm guessing. I have no idea. But I'm guessing if you listen to season 1 and the tension music and season what are they on, 97?
Easy.
Now I'm guessing it's going to sound different. It's going to sound dated. And so I feel like maybe making those really specific distinctions, they're just going to get boiled over as time goes by. They're not going to have the same meaning. That would be one reason for it. I don't know. I feel like the descriptive words, help. Dark, brooding, exciting, I think that whether it's for scripted or non-scripted definitely makes a difference as far as how dark you can get with it, edgier.
That's a whole different, I'm glad that you have brought up scripted versus non-scripted
It's
a couple
really
of times
different.
because the biggest consumers of music, certainly instrumental music, are non-scripted reality shows. Oh, you know what? Here's a question I didn't write down, but you should. I'm going to ask you this. How many opportunities would you say there are in a typical scripted 1-hour drama for music other than score?
Oh gosh. Two, three,
Right.
4. If you're
4 would be a lot, right?
4 would be a lot. And that fourth one is probably going to be, the car drives by and you hear, "Ah,"
Right.
or they're in a bar and, it's so low that you're like, wait, is that the song? Oh, yeah,
Doesn't that break your heart when people are so excited that their music's in a show and they gathered the family members and friends that come over? It's like Super Bowl night at their house and everybody's on the couch and then the song plays. It's so low.
It's so, when you can't hear it, kills me.
Yeah, it always breaks my heart. Do you drive your husband crazy like I drive my wife crazy sitting on the couch? We can't watch anything without me going, that's that kind of cue, that's that kind of cue. Ooh, really good music supervision. See how that tied to the story right there and nailed the cut? And my wife is like, just shut up.
My 6-year-old does it. He'll be like, Mama, did you like that? That was a pretty good music choice, don't you think? I'm like, he has good taste, though. He's usually pretty right.
That's
So
funny.
he does it. But he loves score. He has like score playlists and
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't think my kids ever watched TV with me. Once we moved past Disney and Harry Potter, they were gone. It's like they got their iPads and if they're in the family room with Deb and I, they're sitting on the other part of the L-shaped couch with the iPad
iPads.
watching something on, whatever. Not watching with us. It's family movie night at the Lasco residence, which means they're going to be watching their movie on the iPad. Sad.
I did ask though, like the other things that I was little nitpicky things that come up a lot. And one thing I wanted to say is that I think some of those things have gotten a lot better.
Overall.
Since I've been here, like in 6 years, first of all, the music has gotten better. Just overall gotten so much
I've
better.
got to give credit,
Yeah.
well, first of all, the members, but the
Yeah,
screeners
you
for
guys, good
steering
job.
everybody in the right direction. So,
Yeah, you guys are things have gotten better. Everyone's got, people, your samples are better, your mixes are better, everything's gotten better. So I think some of the little things that used to come up a lot less, which is really good. As like also like specific lyrics. Like I rarely have to say like you can't the name of the song can't be Lucy Lucy. Like I don't have to say that anymore. It's really nice because it can't be. And you guys all know that, so I won't elaborate.
Let's talk about universal lyrics. Then I want to listen to a piece of music, but I find that I've been taking the phrase universal lyrics out of our listings a little more liberally than I used to. And the reason is because I'm realizing so much of the music that leaves here is not used, it's not featured. It's not in a montage at the end of an episode where the lyric is very meaningful to the story and the emotion. It's more about just fitting the vibe of that dirty, dusty biker bar that they're in, and it's going to be from 50 feet away. The lyric doesn't matter, but from the library perspective, is it safe to say that libraries would prefer that virtually everything that they sign has a pretty universal lyric? I sounded like Larry David. Pretty universal lyric. Because it just gives them more options to sell it, if you will, or license it.
Yeah, well, it's better for you. Just have more options. But, on the other side, of course, there is something to be said for something that is just super compelling. Maybe it's not going to fit in as many genres, but if you have an idea that is is really topical. You know, if you're, I don't know what's going on that's topical, but
Here, I can give you
Yeah.
an example. I just worked, I don't know what I did with it now, but I just worked on a taxi listing that's going out tomorrow.
I want to give examples, by the way. I do know what's topical, but I can't because I've just talked about them screening. And if I talk about it, I'm going to get so called out on who I am. So there's some examples I want to give, but I can't.
Yeah, when she thinks topical, she thinks of ointment that she puts on her. Oh no, your kid at 6 years old doesn't get diaper rash anymore. But anyway, we're working. There's a listing coming out tomorrow that is looking for Vietnam War era sounding material for a documentary that presumably is about the
Vietnam War?
or the peace love movement around it. You know, something. And, you know, it's songs like Ohio by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, which I actually added in as one of the refs, and War by Edwin, whatever his name was. So that's topical. And in the listing, my A&R staff had written in universal lyrics. And I took it out. I went down there and talked to them. I said, was that a mandate from the client, or was that something that we presumed? And they said, no, we presumed it just for safety's sake. And I said, yeah, I'm going to take it out. Because if it's a Vietnam era song and it's about war is bad or peace and love are good, or you might even talk about, you know, my brothers were killed in battle or something that's pretty darn specific. In that context, it would totally work. In almost any other context, it wouldn't, but anytime you're going to use a Vietnam War era thing, it's going to have to touch on one side or the other of that discussion, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And I think there's also something to be said for, now don't say my brothers were killed in battle in Ho Chi Minh City. But if you say, you know, my brothers were killed in battle, okay, we're thinking war. But I feel like you can take that same idea and you can make that song so much more marketable because you can use that as a metaphor. So my brothers were, you know, were killed in battle, and what other metaphors, what other imagery goes with that can open that up. So what does that mean to be killed in battle? It can be killed in battle in, you know, emotionally or in love, but don't say love is a battlefield, please.
It could be pain or loss, separation.
Being killed in battle can mean so many things. So I think songs that use specifics as a larger metaphor are going to work in those specific situations so well, and then they can be used in anything. Like I can think of so many. I mean, you can think of like a cop show, My Brother's Killed in Battle. You know, you can think of like a doctor's show where, you know, somebody has lost a patient and they're just, you know, beside themselves. That could be like killed in battle, right?
Lose the battle in the OR or in the ER.
So
very good point. Okay, let's listen to the third thing on your list. Ready, Set, Explode. Speaking of battle.
Soul, you put a passion in me I don't wanna control. So spark my fuse and watch it blow. Look out what I think I'm about to blow. Blaze and explode. Blaze and explode. Blaze and explode. I'm stomping chains, I'm breaking through. Now it's my time to show what I can really do. Look at what I think I'm about to do. Blaze and explode. Blaze and explode. Blaze and explode. Blaze and explode.
good stuff in it. There's a lot of things about it I think are really good. There's a lot of things. There's not a lot of things. There's a couple things that didn't quite work for me, but there's a lot that I thought was really good. What I liked is that maybe based on the title, but also based on the instrumentation at the top, I thought it was going to have a female vocal, and it didn't, and so I like that. I like that surprise. I also liked it because it worked. If it didn't, then I wouldn't like the surprise. but it did, and the vocal's good. The vocal sounds contemporary. The whole song sounds very contemporary. I know since we were talking about lyrics, I kind of focused on that a little bit. And yeah, you light my fire, ignite my soul. It's simple, right? The whole first verse is pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. But this is kind of like a driving rock song, and so I think that's fine. Like, I don't know, that probably wouldn't work in singer-songwriter, right? Singer-songwriter, it's about the lyric and the connection with the melody and how it makes you feel. And it's not going to stand out the same way, but it's not supposed to. And it's rhythmic, it drives, it tracks, makes sense. So it's like the rhymes don't feel forced. So, it works. I do find Look at World, I think I'm about to blow, and then Ready, Set, Explode. Like, that kind of says the same thing to me. So, like, I feel like that sort of pre-chorus line, if you will, could have more impact if it just set up the chorus differently. I like the chorus, but I don't think it sounds like a chorus. To me, it sounds like a post-chorus, or it sounds like something that's going on under a chorus.
Because it's not big enough and impactful enough?
Based on what I get at the beginning, and based on Ready, Set, Explode, like, that's big.
Right.
Like, that's gonna
and it didn't
push it. And it didn't explode. So I find that it gets used too many times. The Ready, Set, Explode. I heard it too many times.
I actually had the thought that if the chorus were standing alone, as a standalone, it would be great in a TV promo for a cop show or a spy thriller or something, in the context of a promo, if all you took was Ready, Set, Explode and didn't have the rest of the song to judge the lack of explosiveness. Yeah, that on its own it was okay, but I felt the same thing. Yeah,
no, that's a good point. But yeah, it is cool for a promo. It is. I think that if there was if it was under something, or if there was a bigger chorus, because the oohs like get me really excited for what's going to happen next, and then I felt like that it fell down a little bit. I wanted the second verse to be the same length as the first verse. I felt like we got back to the pre-chorus way too fast, and it kind of like a little jerky. But I think like a good reference for this is Thunder by Imagine Dragons. It's super repetitive. I mean, they hit lightning before the thunder a lot, but the vocal effect they put on that, the instrumental riff behind it, the power of the percussion, and how the singer, how he changes his voice, like how it's different every time he says it. It has like a different emotion behind it. That's what keeps it, I think that's what keeps that song still interesting.
They're still in. Isn't it amazing? How long have they been out in the world now? Like,
I think, no, 9, not that long.
Yeah, approaching 10. Well, approaching 10 years, and I've always been amazed by their staying power. But you know what? Without all of us really realizing it, they kind of changed the tenor of what we do.
Yeah.
Everybody glommed onto them pretty darn quickly, and I'm a little hesitant for people to glom onto them now because they've got this almost 10-year time span, and by the time you perfect the tools that they're using, it could be passé. But then again, the ukulele and Happy Clappies are still around.
Happy Clappies are still around, so Yeah. I don't think anyone would be mad if you gave them something that sounded like Radioactive.
Yeah. It's a classic on
it's
every level.
Yeah. And they're so good live.
I haven't seen it.
Oh my God.
Really?
It was my son's first concert.
Really? How
at
old
the Hollywood
was he?
Bowl. 5, 6. Yeah, just took them last. It was this fall.
Wow.
They're really good. But they're great. They're great songwriters. And they have, they put a ton of emotion into their... I was doing, at the road rally, some of you guys saw this, I was with Chris in the doing the rock and singer-songwriter thing, and he was saying that somebody had a song and the chorus came, and he said, somebody should step on your foot when you sing the chorus. Like, see, I can't say this because this would come out wrong coming from me. He can say this. And
he will.
And he will. And he said, it should sound like somebody stepped on your foot. And I just thought that was such a great reference because Somebody needs to step on your foot when you sing this chorus, because it's good. And that, but it gives it. I think what he's trying to say is that the chorus is what everybody's supposed to listen to. That's what sums up this song. That's where the emotion is. That's where, all the energy is. And I think in Imagine Dragons they do that really well.
I've tried to explain to people that back when I still worked in the studio that I would demand that from singers, that it's one thing to belt it and, oh, look at what I'm capable of.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole other thing when it goes from your toenails up through your legs and out through other parts of your body. You just know it. When you walk into the room and hear 3 words, you go, okay, that vocal's coming from another place.
Yeah.
We heard one of those from a Taxi member the other day. I can't remember who on this. I think it was Tom actually played me this young lady, and that was the first. I said, all the times that I've referenced vocals coming from the toenails and out other places, that's the perfect example.
Oh, I want to hear this song.
She's that good.
Oh, wow, I want to hear it. A really good example for me that I give a lot is Stone Cold by Demi Lovato.
Yeah.
I mean, she is feeling every single
I
pain
think she
in
sets
her
the standard.
life in that song. It's insane. I mean, forget the fact that she has a ridiculous voice.
Yeah.
But it's ridiculous because she has a great voice, but she puts so much emotion into it. And that's...
No slight to Selena Gomez, but they kind of grew up together in the industry.
Yeah.
And Selena is a very capable, attractive, and I mean not attractive from a physical perspective, but as an artist, she can attract fans and listeners. Demi Lovato, I've really only grown to appreciate her in the last couple of years. Yeah, she's amazing.
I remember when I heard, I was thinking, this is like a Disney girl. Then I heard Skyscrapers, 6-8 years ago, a while ago now. I was like, oh my gosh, she can really sing.
And all of it now,
She's so
everything
good.
she does, it's like she reached a maturity level or something. She really discovered her voice. Not her vocals, but her voice as an artist. She's amazing.
Yeah. But that's really important. If you say... really act out what you're singing.
Mm-hmm.
And act it out. If you're going to say it a lot of times, act it out differently each time. It has to mean something different. Subtly something different every time you say it. Or it's going to lose impact.
Frank Sinatra, greatest interpreter of lyrics in my lifetime anyway. Just amazing that way. Let's listen to the first thing on the list. This is an instrumental.
Oh, cool.
Called Po' Boy Zydeco.
It's 1:56.
Okay. Yes. 2 minutes is totally the right length it should be, but it started to feel a little long to me. And I think we both were like, did we get it? We got it.
I didn't even look at the time, and I had her faded just because I felt like we had it.
We had it.
Yeah.
So, don't let people feel that way. But like, that's kind of it. It was good. first of all, if you put Poor Boy Zydeco in your title, it better be.
It's a winner.
But it's a
I
winner.
mean, from a title perspective,
so
if you're
good.
scanning the list
Right.
and you're working on something and you need Zydeco,
Yeah, there you go. But it better be.
Yeah.
You're in trouble. But it is, and it hit the nail on the head. It was like a little bit swampy, which I liked. It was a good riff. I thought it developed really well. I talk about that a lot when I screen.
Mhm.
You don't always want to give them everything at once, because then you don't have anywhere to go. Especially for film and TV, give them something simple at top so they can bring it up under dialogue, and it's not just blah. If they want to jump right to the middle, they can, and they'll cut right to the middle. So give them more to work with. There's a lot of quick, fast changes, like in the first 30, I'd say, which I really liked. It keeps me interested in what's happening. By the third time I heard the riff, I felt like we could have used a change. Because it's good, it's cute, but it's very catchy. So if you hear it too much, it can sort of wear out its welcome, especially if it's behind dialogue. So I think
there is such a thing as too many brownies.
Yes, there are.
You end up puking.
Yeah, too many brownies. But like, if you know how to make brownies, that's great, right? Because you can always just have less of them. It's much harder, like I've said, it's much harder to write something catchy than like, okay, now I need to pull back a little bit. But
I've got to say, when it went to the breakdown, I thought that the breakdown was going to go through some different changes, but it stayed very linear. But the beat was so infectious, even though it was just a plain old, I mean, it's just muting everything else. The underlying beat was there. I really liked the breakdown. I didn't think I would.
You know what? I said the same thing. I was literally thinking the same thing. And what was the reason it worked, and this is something I talk about all the time, is because the drums sounded great. Like, the drums are really in that song. They are not, they're, by no means like pushed down under the mix or anything, but you don't notice them. Do you know what I mean? Until you think, oh, the breakdown. Oh, there's all these drums in this song. They fit in there really nicely, and that's why you can get away with it, I think. And also because we've heard the riff a lot, so the break is nice. We do need it, but I think you could have a third act. I think you could, after the break, you could have a change and then go back, and then we'll be excited to hear the little riff again because we haven't heard it for a while. But yeah, that was good. But even if it starts to feel repetitive, I feel like a library would scoop that up, somebody who's working on a show like this, because chances are they would never use the entire 2 minutes.
Right. Which is something that not enough people seem to understand. Our more experienced, more professional members have learned that it's extremely rare that anybody's going to use an entire cue. It's extremely rare. And it's not infrequent that they're going to use just a few seconds, 4 seconds, 9 seconds, 31 seconds.
This could be on a cooking show when somebody's like running through an aisle and they're like, oh my gosh, I need, I don't know, cornbread to make this cornbread. They go,
Tony Zadarin's anything.
Exactly, yeah. Or this contestant's from Louisiana, and they throw it in, and that contestant's out. So, but that's not to say don't be lazy. Still write full cues. We're not letting you off the hook that easily. But yeah, it's true.
It's that momentum. We always talk about the forward progression and the momentum. Sometimes it's the easiest little thing, like where you were talking that the figure repeated too often. Could have added a percussion thing, a washboard or something.
Washboard.
After 4 bars or 8 bars, just to instead wait longer to repeat the figure, but pick up the rhythm using some sort of hand-played instrumental thing that just made it a little different and made it. It's got to make you feel like you're moving down a timeline. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, and you know what? I totally wrote that on the Ready, Set, Explode, because I felt like the second verse, it was. The second verse, there's got to be something that's different from the first verse. When you get through an entire song, you wanted to have a journey, so you don't feel like there's just something. It can be so small, it can be so tiny, but there's another thing that comes in, and it's the journey. Definitely.
That's a good word. If you see that pop up in any listings,
the journey,
you'll know where it came from. I will have stolen it from you. Let's listen to another one. Let's listen to number 4 on the list, please.
That Hanging Baskets?
Yeah, I guess I should say the titles. I'm not a very good host.
You just need some brunch.
Yeah, right, I do.
Oh, it
You're
was
very good
faded,
host.
and
Oh.
give me 1 minute. I didn't fade it back up. All right.
Follow me to the other side. We will bathe under golden sun. Run with me through the countryside. Fall down laughing while hanging baskets cry. Well, I don't know if it's wrong, I don't know if it's right. It just feels so good. Well, I don't know what's to come, I don't care what is gone. Just be here with me. Deeper into your eyes I go, a mental photo that cannot be erased. I don't know where the road will go, but know that life is just moments past. I don't know if it's wrong, I don't know if it's right. It just feels so good. Well, I don't know what's to come, I don't care what is gone. Just be here with me. We will always lie under blue skies while hanging baskets cry. I don't know what's to come, I don't care where we go. Just be here with me. Follow me to the other side. We will bathe under golden sun. Run with me through the countryside. Fall down laughing while hanging baskets cry. I don't know if it's wrong, I don't know if it's right. It just feels so good. I don't know what's to come, I don't care what is gone. Just be here with me.
Good fade.
Sorry, that was not a good thing.
I just figured out while we were listening to that what it is that I love about you in the context of your screening at Taxi all these years.
Oh, thank you for stopping.
You are like that girl that dumps you in high school that does it in such a way that you feel like $1,000,000 after you've been dumped. You're so incredibly honest with people, but yet so good with your logic and reasoning that they have to walk away from the experience of finding out, well, you're not getting forwarded. But, you know, and it comes from a totally honest place. You're just so good at it. Anyway.
I was actually, when I was listening to this, I was thinking, I was like, oh gosh, am I being like really too honest?
No,
But
there's no such thing.
It doesn't help anybody
Right.
if I'm not. You know, none of this is personal. I think everybody knows this. We're all grown-ups, you know?
People feel it personally, and I can
Yeah.
understand
Oh,
the
yeah.
attachment. It's their creation.
Yeah, you do.
But look, I mean, does she look evil? No, not an evil bone in her body.
I'm not. I'm really not. I'm very nice. I like to help people.
You do.
I love music. I'm obsessed with it. I love it.
You
I
do.
love helping people make good music. So, but I am honest.
I can't stop looking at the pink string
Oh,
of
thank
hair.
you, yeah.
Because I'm an avid saltwater fisherman, and all day long I've wanted to cut that off and tie it on a lure and like go cast it at a tarpon in the Keys. So if you see me staring at the side of your face, it's
that's
that.
why I have a feather too. Can you
Oh,
use
that's
that?
what it is.
Yeah, well, there's a
Oh.
feather. There's a little rooster feather, and then the pink, and then my fishing lure apparently. So that's good to know.
Both. I mean, seriously, you should hang out in sporting goods stores because you can buy that stuff all day long. Anyway, go ahead, lay it on us.
A fish head. Come on now. This is horrible. This is what I get for being honest. Okay. Okay, so I see the title, and I have no idea what hanging baskets are. So I'm immediately thinking this is going to have to be kind of singer-songwriter. And it is. So that's good. There is, like, now this is this is definitely somebody mixing genres, like, because the vocal effects and the vocal style is not country or is not singer-songwriter, but the song itself is definitely got some rootsy country flavor and very singer-songwriter. But I think it works. I think the things come together. Like, at first I wrote, oh, vocal effects, that's not going to work. But by the time I got to the chorus, I was like, oh, I don't care, I like it. It gives it like it gives a moody vibe to it. I think it's cool. I do think there needs to be more contrast before the chorus, because the verse just goes right into the chorus, and if I wasn't looking at this, I would have had no idea I was listening to the chorus.
Do you find that as a screener, there are times that we don't ask for lyric sheets and you wish we did more frequently, or is it better that you operate kind of in the dark? In this case, you were looking at, you knew when the chorus was there, not that you wouldn't know anyway, but do we need to ask for lyrics more often or less often, or we're doing it just about right? Goldilocks.
I don't think it matters when we ask for them. I think you should always submit them. Okay. I think that you should do it, take it on yourself to do it. And the reason I say that is it's going to help us, well, at least for me, it helps me give you a better critique, because I can cut and paste things. I can use things as examples. Like, a lot of times when you're talking about melody, if I can't sing it to you or play it to you, like, how can I express to you, like, oh, this melody needs to go up or down or change? But if I can take a piece of lyric and I can say, okay, so the melody you have here, this is going to feel more like a pre-chorus, and so, like, I can, like, mix stuff around for you and show you with your lyrics, and I feel like it's going to make more sense than me saying, you know. And also because sometimes you don't know what people think is what, and sometimes there is a difference of opinion of what people say, well, that's where the chorus starts, or that's not a pre-chorus, that's part of the verse, or that's not a pre-chorus, there's 3 different sections of the chorus. So it helps to know what you're thinking, so that when I say the pre-chorus, I'm talking about what you think is the pre-chorus. So I think it's helpful. Somebody
that wrote in with questions, I believe, before the show asked, why aren't we running more listings that are S listings where we give fuller critiques? Honestly, there are a bunch of screeners that we're, not a bunch like 20, but, you know, some screeners that we're not using anymore because we've gotten pickier over the last couple of years. And you're kind of where the bar is, honestly. And there's...
You want to tell them that after this? Like, great, you pick mean people with fishing lures in their hair.
This is the best you can do. I think, you know, there's another screener that is in many of the genres that you work in. He no longer lives in LA, but you guys were almost always teamed up on similar, if not identical things.
He's right.
And so we tend to lean on the screeners that we know are going to give the best result to the members and the industry. So that gives us a little more time pressure on our end. And if we're doing more S listings where you and the other screeners that we hold in very high esteem, not that the other people sucked by any stretch of the imagination. Usually lame people don't make it past 2 or 3 visits to Taxi, and then they're gone rather quickly. Many of them don't make it past the inauguration, if you will. They come in, they get tested. We have them come in for a listing where we check every single thing that they touch, and we know pretty much right then and there if it's going to work or it's not. But all that said, we want to get, we've become pickier about who we put on which listings.
Right.
And so in the past, I'm talking years ago, there were people who were assigning the screeners to the listings, and they would go, this guy's really good at jazz. You and I had this discussion a couple days ago. Jazz screener.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. See, we talk about this stuff all the time. We're always trying to improve what we do. Just because somebody is a jazz aficionado, I would much rather put Brooke on a jazz listing for film and TV than somebody who is a world-class expert on jazz, because they're going to hear it the wrong way.
Yeah.
They're looking for, this is the most inventive jazz with the most incredible players. Brooke is looking at it from, would this work in a smoky bar?
Yeah. And so not the same thing.
Yeah.
It's so different. Like, what's going to work in a smoky bar, you know, with people talking about, you know, some scam that they're getting ready to do, or some heist, or some romantic conversation, it's not going to be that same piece of music that if you go to a jazz club and they're playing killer jazz, you don't talk.
Right.
You know,
If
you shouldn't.
You'll get thrown out if you do.
You better not. But you're there for the music. But that's not a television show.
Yep.
That's a concert. So it's not
Television
the same thing.
ain't reality.
No.
Not even reality is reality.
Gosh.
Let's see. Drew Richardson asks, how many tracks get forwarded on average per listing? And I'm going to let you.
Okay.
She didn't know any of the questions I was going to ask her today, so I'm going to have Brooke answer this.
Okay. I can answer this? Okay. No, this is like classified information.
No, it's totally
okay,
not.
so here's the thing. Like, it's obviously a lot of it's going to depend on how many, things come in. On a day, let's say I listen to 80 tracks. Probably, if we're talking songs, maybe. No, let's not do an. I'm thinking Y listing in my head. Let's not, because we're first talking songs. Let's do an S listing. Let's say I listened to 26. 5 to 6 get forwarded, I would say, on average. We're talking instrumentals, and I listen to 80 instrumentals, maybe more like 10. But it depends. It's also going to depend. Some days also, the way things come in, they're not ordered. So there's days where it's like, ugh. Where, I mean, I don't mean blah, but it's bad. But I mean blah, like, oh my gosh, why haven't I forwarded more? But that's like a tenth of the listing or half of the listing, and sometimes they can be stacked in a way where you get, and then you have a day where you're like, oh my gosh, I forwarded so many. Like, I forwarded half of what I've listened to.
But there's no
totally
mandate.
happened.
Just to be clear, anybody that's watching this that doesn't know us well, we never tell the screener. I'm lying. Maybe once or twice a year, somebody will say, send me only your best 3, but that's extremely rare. The vast, vast, vast majority of the time, we don't tell the screeners, find the best 10% or find the best 20%. The rule is, find the stuff that's good enough and on target enough that they should hear it. Yeah,
and I'm excited when I get a bunch. I'm like, oh my god, I had so many forwards. Like, I'll tell Tom, like, this is crazy. And there's days when, for some reason, people hit the mark, miss the mark, and it usually has more to do with a style thing than with quality.
I always found that to be the case. That like
especially lately.
80% of the time that I didn't forward stuff when I was screening, this was way back in the day, it was because they just missed the genre.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
But like we've seen, like with the first one, like what genre is that? It's, a lot of it is subjective. A lot of it is, I hope I'm not speaking for you or.
Feel free.
So, but qualify this if I'm off target. But we also, to a certain extent, you guys get what the client says. And I've had times where I've had supervisors come to me and they're like, I want something indie folk, and they give me a reference. I'm like, that's not indie folk. Like,
I find that to be the case
I
often.
don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, so do you want indie folk, or do you want something that sounds like this? And so I'm sure sometimes you have to like navigate that, and you have to try to. So it's like, it's kind of a game of telephone. You have to guess what they're thinking, and then you have to translate it, and then you guys have to translate what that means to you, and we have to translate what that means. And sometimes things get lost. I hope that, I think that you guys have, the people writing listings, you guys, know what you're doing. You've worked with the clients for long enough that you've started to been able to interpret what they mean.
There are times that we have to reach out to them. We just had one the other day where I forget, but the person running the listing said, throw something in and make it like this, and we went, huh? That's completely. It was for blues rock / singer-songwriter or something, and it was like, no. So we do reach back out to them, but sometimes they don't know, and it could be the case of. I find this to be with some library owners where they get a request from the industry. I'm trying to think of a good, example of something, but they get a request from the industry and they just parrot the request out to us, but they don't really understand the genre they've asked for.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
There are other library owners that, I'm not even going to say it. Genres are fluid, they're subjective, and you really have to think about it and some discourse. I find that usually if 2 or 3 or 4 of us are talking about it, that we land on what is a good choice. But as Brooke would tell you, it's not unheard of for myself or the people on our A&R staff to go out to the screener room and grab Brooke and bring her in and say, can you take a look at this? What would you think this is? Or listen to this reference. What do you think it is?
Yeah, or with some other people that also sound like this.
Yeah.
Or to, kind of narrow it down.
Yeah, we give it every
Yeah.
ounce of effort that we possibly can. And I know it frustrates you guys when you read a listing and go, huh? Just know that you won't find it expressed or articulated better anywhere else in the industry because we give it that much effort.
And if you're doing something that is just killer and it's close, and if it's at all ambiguous, or if we're kind of like, I'm not really sure what genre, if they're saying, Shawn Mendes and they're saying singer-songwriter, and I'm like, oh, rolling my eyes, and you've got something that's just killer and it falls in the middle there somewhere, you're probably going to get forwarded.
And the better we know the entity we're sending the music to, the higher that probability goes up. But we also have to not wear out our welcome. We know how much we can get away with a lot of people. We know when we can forward something that's just so spectacularly exciting that we want them to hear it.
Yeah.
It does happen, but we can't do that all that often because then they don't trust us to do what we really need to do.
Yeah. And I mean, within narrow boundaries. It's a little bit off. I'm not saying, if we're asking for female pop and you send me a male R&B, I'm like, it could be it could be John Legend, I mean, it could be amazing, but I'm like, I really don't know what I can do with this because that's not what they're looking for. So it doesn't really matter how good it is.
Somebody asked, and this gets asked a lot, and you use a type of headphone I've never seen before. So do you use anything other than the headphones to listen to submissions? What brands of headphones or speakers do you use?
So I was using the Bose noise canceling ones, and they kept breaking, and I would have to use batteries, and that bothered me. So I stopped using those, and now the ones that are here are Sony. I bring my own. I bring they're Skull Candy. I like them because
those are the chrome ones.
The chrome ones. I know they look like aviator ones. I wear them only because they look cool. No, I wear them honestly because they're really soft around my ears, and when you're wearing them for 4 or 5 hours at a time, it makes a difference. It really does. So I wear them because they're really comfortable. I think I get good sound quality out of them. I will, if I'm having a question about something that just sounds really off, I'll switch the headphones. I'll put on the Sony ones. I'll also ask somebody the other day. I was listening to something and I was like, I didn't quite trust myself with how I was interpreting the chorus. I wasn't sure. And so I said, hey, give me your ears. What do you think? Does this sound contemporary to you? And it was helpful.
That happens a lot. I think people would be surprised how much interplay. It's not like it happens every 5 minutes, but the screeners know that we've got people they can go to, and we know that we can go to the screeners.
Yeah.
Nobody gets it right 100% of the time. But the reason I get asked that question all the time about headphones and speakers is that some people have gone out, we've given them the model number, the Sonys that we use, and they went out and bought them because they want to mix on those. And they do it because they want to up their chances of creating a mix that's going to get them forwarded. I personally don't give it that much credence. I'm not going to say don't do it, but I can't imagine something.
I don't know. I would think it'd be hard to mix on headphones, personally.
Yeah, especially, I mean, those headphones, the Sonys were actually picked out of a bunch of different headphones. That we went out and got like 10 different varieties of mid-priced headphones. And I remember we called it the Day of Mediocrity. And we literally did, it's like NS10s. Those aren't great sounding speakers, but they're a standard and we're all familiar with them. Right. So that's why we picked the Sonys. They got picked by, popular demand.
Yeah, no, they're fine. Like I said, I use mine because they're soft on my ears.
L. Harrison says, I need bigger brain for these shows. We love doing these shows, and we're glad that we're making your head explode. Let's listen to one more thing before we wrap it up. Let's listen to number 5 on the list, which is called 24. What?
Make it count. No excuses. It's grind.
Is that a question? Oh, mention it. Much better told this time,
I tried.
All right, what say you?
Let's say me. I liked that there was a male on the chorus, and that was cool. It gave it a contrast. I like the chorus for like sports drinks or, it's kind of this like, how tough are you? What can you do? Can you jump off a building with a bat suit on? So I kind of
No.
It's got that kind of feel for me, that kind of edgy X Games, Red Bull, rock star kind of thing. Revolt.
Yes.
Revolt?
Rockstar Revolt.
Okay.
Okay.
I would not put revolt on a beverage. Sounds too much like revolting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They could have said repulse. Okay.
I found that the verse melody was a little too conjunct, meaning it didn't quite have enough movement. It
What was that word?
Conjunct.
Wow.
Disjunct and conjunct melodies. So
I've
conjunct,
never heard that word my whole life, and I'm fairly literate. Good job. Anyway, sorry.
Thank you to my AP music teacher at Lewiston
Nice.
High School. Yeah. So yeah, it starts to feel a little back and forth and a little repetitive, especially for the length. Like if just looking at the lyrics, like I see the line length is exactly the same on all of them, and having those contrasts, like having a longer line length or having something where you spread it out or you break up the phrase, it keeps the listener's ear engaged. So it's like, oh, something new, and so that they don't tune out, they don't accidentally tune out and like miss something. I do think there could be a stronger instrumental change in the chorus to help it stand out, but I do like that it builds. I found that the break back to the second verse way too extreme. Like for film and TV, I think it would bring a scene to a halt. It was really extreme. It was almost like a pause.
Mm-hmm.
And I worried that would just, if you've got the energy going in a scene, I don't know what kind of scene this would be in, some sort of action scene or a chase scene or something, that's going to just like,
You'd have
it's not
to
gonna work. You'd have
edit
to
it out, or
out.
either edit it out or edit the scene around it, neither of which are good.
No, neither of which are good, because even if the song is really good, it's that extra bit of work, and they're going to find something else. Like, they'll find the littlest thing. Like, no, I don't want my editor to have to do that. Give me something better.
It's hard for people to believe that the industry really works that way, that really you're talking another minute of work and you're going to toss it, but they will.
They will. They have so little time,
Yeah.
and there's so many options. There's so many people that are so good that, and like we've said, like, oh, it's sitting behind, gunshots and explosions. Like, we're not going to hear it anyway. So just, like, we just need the energy. So, yeah, they'll choose something else. I really like the hook lyric. I just think that's a really cool way to say, like, it's a nice descriptive way, a twist on words to say, like, what are you going to do with your life? And I like it. I think, what are you going to do with your 24? But I think it gets used too much. I think you hit it too many times in the chorus. And it could be as simple as something, like another way for saying you're 24, or what are you going to do with? Just a tweak on the lyric or a play on the melody so that it doesn't feel the same way. Breaking up the phrase, something so that it feels new each time you say it. I would love to know, like, some options, like what you could do with your 24. Like the first verse, you set up this idea of your ideas of what you should do, like, you know, this idea of getting to the 24. But then, like, what are the things you could do with your, as opposed to just saying, like, Carpe Diem seize the day, which is kind of similar things that we get in the first verse. Ideas of, like, this is where I think you can start getting away with some specifics in lyrics, because you're using them not as this character is doing this in this time, but as like a metaphor of these are all the things that you can do in your life. And that's when you can get away with some details in your lyrics.
I'm glad that you pointed out that much detail in your analysis. The reason is that Nashville's famous for this. You go to Nashville and any A&R meeting or publisher meeting, they will immediately say, who's her? I don't understand. Where did she come from? Why is she even in this verse? Mm-hmm. And people don't understand that nobody's saying, I'm disqualifying this and I won't forward it because of what you just said, mm-hmm. but you're just offering this up as an extra suggestion. If you're going to go back and tweak the song, you might want to consider this. Yeah. Sometimes the members take this kind of feedback to mean, do you believe they wouldn't forward my song because of that? Just know that it's icing on the cake. It's a little screener love. It's sending you home with a little bonus.
I will forward people and say, however, if you don't get picked up, or if this doesn't work for this listing, whatever, you may want to consider blah, blah, blah.
I'm sure I've said this to you before, but if you ever wake up in the middle of the night and see somebody standing at the foot of your bed with one of those long wooden stick with a swab at the end, like a Q-tip,
okay,
that's me going for your DNA in your mouth. I'm going to swab you so that I can clone you, because I would love to have an army of you. You're really good at this.
Freaky, guys.
I promise I'm not showing up, but seriously, you're just so. This comes so easily to you, and you're so. You are caring. You really,
I do care.
You really do.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard you say a bad thing about anybody. You take everybody's feelings into consideration, but you tell them the truth. You're like an Olympic ice skater of screening. That's how good you are.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. That means a lot to me, especially coming from you.
You mean a lot to us and to our members. And just for you guys who are asking, these are the headphones. The lighting's not great, but they're Sony MDR XD 100s. I think that we paid something like $55 or $75.
Brooke for president.
Yes, absolutely.
Pay raise for Brooke. Thank you, Glenn.
Good job, Glenn.
You guys are funny. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got to have you back in like sooner than later. I can't believe I've never had you on the show before. We did this live for a group of members that came by the office like a month after Brooke started here, and
no pressure.
Yeah, it was, and I just sat here pretty much mute because she was so good at it that I didn't need to open my mouth, which you guys know is kind of hard for me. With that, I want to thank you guys for sending in good questions, sending in great music, and remember to go to Facebook, to the Taxi, what is our, Facebook/Taxi A&R?
It's like Taxi Independent AR. It's a little.
Anyway, find us on Facebook and comment why you would be a good person to interview me next week. Right. You will be representing your sisters and brothers, and you can ask me anything. You know what?
You better have security.
I want to invite Ari Herstand. Ari Herstand, I'm calling you out, dude. I want you to come on the show and talk to me, or better yet, center stage at the Road Rally and lay that I would never pay a company like Taxi to represent my music crap on me. So that would be fun. I would enjoy that. I love a good debate. And with that, we will see you guys next week. Brooke, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. I hope I didn't offend anybody.
You did. You couldn't. You're the best. Thank you, guys. See you next week.
Ooh, I like it, like newscaster.
It is, isn't it? Look at that. Does it get any cuter than that?
That's so awesome. It matches my hair.
That's right. Bye, you guys. Oh yeah, we need a little applause from iCarly.